Like you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for filling the seats. Thank you for not being so hungover you can't come at all. There were a bunch of us that started on this journey about 4 years ago, and Mal Cooper was one of them. He started a lot earlier, but things didn't start clicking until I think about the latter half of 2016, right? The advertising started to figure it out and said, whoa, hey, I spent 20 grand and I have 40 grand that is going to come back. So once you figure out what other things do you need to do, last year's presentation was on how to work Instagram followers to become a lookalike audience to help you kick ass on Amazon ads and Facebook ads. So this year, talking about capturing new readers, other ways to bring readers on board, and that's one thing everybody, no matter how much your money you're making, you can always use one more reader. Because I saw an ad for Harry Potter, right? Like you don't have Harry, well, they're looking for one more reader. Mal Cooper.
Thank you. So I apologize for how my voice is going to sound today. I probably sound like a 60-year-old drag queen at this point, you know, from talking. But I've had so much fun talking to all you guys, and I'm really glad that you all came here today. And yeah, a lot of my talks previously to this have been very action-oriented. Here's how you run ads. Here's how you make a Pinterest funnel, an Instagram funnel, and whatnot. I'm going to talk a little bit about that stuff today, but I also want to talk a little bit more. Better? All right, good. I also want to talk a little bit more about sort of the mental aspects of getting new readers. How you need to think, how you need to behave, how you want to act, and how you want to put yourself out there, and then how you want to nurture people into becoming your readers, into becoming your super fans. I'm going to go through very quickly a couple of things that are more action-oriented, and then I'm going to have a link you can go to at the end where you can get more information on that, because I realize if I try to put up a lot of detailed information on certain things, it would be like an eye chart and I'll be able to read it. So we're going to go a little more high-level today, and then I'll have more information for you guys that you can dive deep in. So my name is Malorie Cooper. I write sci-fi science fiction under MD Cooper. Some of you guys probably know I've written a lot of books. Last year was my heaviest year. Myself and my co-authors did 44 books last year. And so this November is the 3-year anniversary of my 4th book. So 3 years ago, I had just released my 4th book, and today my 92nd book came out. So it's been pretty fun, yeah. And some of you guys might have known me as someone with a beard before, named Michael Cooper. That was the old me. This is the new me. I look a lot more like that more often now. No, that was at a convention. That was a lot of fun. So a little bit about me. I'm a former software developer, so I do think about things really analytically, and I like to isolate variables. But I was also one of those rare software developers that can actually communicate with the marketing team. Like I could talk to software developers and the marketing team, and so I was always put in management positions, which I hated, and that's why eventually when I could be a writer, I was happy to get out of there. But I feel like I developed a skill to be able to take these complex, more software-oriented things, because that's what we're dealing with. We're all working with software these days, right? It's all marketing software. It's all selling ebooks online. It's all doing things on the internet. We're all basically working in a software industry in many respects. So I hope that what I can do is I can take some of that technical stuff that's going on in the back end and make it accessible to everybody in a way you can understand. I hit New York Times bestseller. It was an anthology, so I'm not one of the glorious people that did it with a solo book. I kind of glommed on to something else and did it. But I'm milking that for all it's worth, because it was still really hard to pull that off. I do ads courses, and of course, if you were there for that first session, I created something called the Aeon 14 universe. And in an act of pure hubris, when I released my first book in 2012, I'm like, I'm going to say that this is the beginning of a magical enterprise called Aeon 14. I wrote an Aeon 14 novel, and it was the only one for 3 years, type of thing. But somehow it panned out, and it's worked. And I think that it's good to have big, audacious goals, and that's something that I do a lot of. And I might be a little bit transgender, in case you didn't notice. So last year, just to see if I could, and I won't do it this year because, with Craig's failing health, I don't want him to actually keel over. But I came up and said, a rising tide does not float all boats. I just said crazy stuff like that. And Craig was like, and I don't want to do that again to the poor guy. So I figured I would give fair warning. And then, so when I was building this, I'm like, okay, I'll just sort of announce the crazy things I'm going to say. And then my whole presentation just became crazy things I'm going to say. So I'm going to say things like, don't expect to succeed. Don't stand up from the crowd. Clearly, I'm not being facetious at all on this point here. Don't write what you know. Don't search for readers, and don't be bold. That's like the kicker. If you didn't figure out by then that obviously we're going to kind of take a little bit of a journey here through these things. So I say don't expect to succeed, instead fail fast. And I talked a little bit about this last year, and I don't know that I really got this point across really well, and I wanted to come back to it again. There's the 80-20 rule. I actually kind of believe more in the 90-10 rule, but in the 80-20 rule, 20% of your effort is going to yield 80% of your returns, and 80% of your effort is going to return 20% of your returns. 80% of the things you do aren't working, and they're wasting your time, and you need to stop doing them, but you don't know what they are. So that's where the whole fail fast mentality comes from. And that's why a lot of my Facebook ads book is all about stop doing things that aren't working. Identify the ads that aren't working and stop doing those, because some of them will be working and you want to focus on those. And also, like a lot, I've talked to a number of authors, and sometimes authors have said to me at this conference that this conference makes them feel terrible about themselves, because they see all these high-powered authors, they see people that release one book a year, and I see people that release one book a year too, and they make more money than I do. I'm like, dear God, I released 44 books. I work I'm not currently wearing a tail. If you saw me last night, I had a tail, but I've worked it off apparently to make the money I do. And there's some people there that make more money than I do with one book, and purely they're 90% pixie dust, I think, is what their ratio looks like. But it's okay to fail. Failing is your first attempt in learning, and you have to do it, and it's okay. And I released that first book in 2012, and I released my second book in 2015, third in 2016, and my fourth at the end of 2016. And it wasn't until, actually I have a correction to make. It was mostly my wife that started doing the Facebook ads that really got things going. I said I need to issue a correction. It was not I that did it. It was my wife, Jill, that really got the Facebook ads going the first time around and got that working. She's just not nearly as willing to stand up here in a cat suit as I am to talk to all of you folks. But yeah, it was 4 years of doing books and getting covers and spending a lot of money and not making anything. I was in the hole probably by several $1,000s by the time 2016 rolled around. And I was still plugging through because I really believed in it. I really wanted to tell a story. But by figuring out ads and by being the master of my own destiny and not sort of just hoping that the algorithm was going to do magic things for me or hoping that maybe a BookBub might do magic things for me, it was me understanding how to reach out, capture readers when I want to capture them with what I had, and then bringing them, get them to read. That was the secret of my success. And I never wanted my success to be based on magical things that I can't control, because I can't control magical things. I am not a wizard. I might look like a wizard sometimes, but I'm not a wizard. Actually, I probably look more like a sorceress now, don't I? I like that. I want to look like a sorceress. All right. So failure is a tool. Failure is not an excuse. And you have to frame that way in your mind. You can't think that failure is an excuse, like, oh, I didn't do this thing, and that's okay, and yada, yada, yada. It's like, no, I failed. What can I learn from this failure? I have to learn from this failure. And so in everything you do, you have to have an idea of what success is. And I used to be in software development. They said, you have to know what success is. You have to know how to measure success. I'm like, dear God, this sounds like the most annoying thing I've ever heard. You pointy-haired boss, stop talking to me, go away. But over time, I really came to understand that, if you do something and you can't tell if it's working or not, why are you doing it? And success is different for everybody. Some people's measurement of success might be that I want to, I'm writing a book about autism, and I want to help people in the autistic community, and I don't care if I make any money. Or, I really want to win some accolades from this particular community I'm involved in. Maybe I'm like a model railroad. I don't know, something crazy like that I would never write about. But there might be people who are into that, and that's their thing, and they want to get an award for writing, doing a pictorial book about amazing model railroads or something like that. And that's their version of success. For some people, it's I want to be a full-time author. For some people, it's I just want to go to Disneyland and not panic the entire time about the credit card bill while I'm there. There are different measurements of success, and you want to know what those are. And you can tell if it's working or not. That way, because if you don't, you're just you start measuring yourself. Well, one, you start measuring yourself against the rank. Book rank is the devil. I haven't looked at my book rank in months. I have a book released today. I have no idea what the rank is. I'll probably never look at what the rank is. I don't care what the rank is. It doesn't matter. And I'll say this to you, the algorithm is not based on your rank. Rank is purely a measure of your sales compared to every other freaking author's sales out there. 70,000 books come out a month right now. So say it's like a slow Wednesday, and 20 books were released on this slow Wednesday, and you have this great rank, and the next day, 2,500 books come out. Your rank will plummet by 2,500. It's nothing you did, just 2,500 books came out that day, and they all happen to be better than you because they're all like Michelangelo's books, apparently. And that's nothing that you did. You didn't do that. You did the thing that was working, and you kept doing it, but you feel terrible about yourself because your rank plummeted, because rank doesn't mean anything. Rank is a way to look at everybody else around you and say, ooh, how are they doing? How do I measure up against them? That's not how you'll find success. You're never going to feel good, and eventually your rank will go down, and you'll feel terrible. Don't measure yourself by rank. Measure yourself by the things that are actually going to make you feel successful for yourself, and you'll enjoy this a lot more. And of course, so when you're looking at things that aren't working, and typically what you're doing is not working, is just bad ads, or you're spending a lot of money on promo sites that aren't doing anything, or you're spending a bunch of money on promo sites that are off genre and you're destroying your also bots, which is something I did originally. I had a lot of, my wife was writing romance and urban fantasy, and she had all these friends, so my books were done, I put my sci-fi books on blog tours in romance and urban fantasy blog tours, which just obliterated my also bots. But that book that came out in 2012, once I learned how to market it, was selling 150 copies a day in 2016, in the fall of 2016. So, and people always say, like, you have to re-release books and you have to do that. You don't, actually. You can, because Amazon does care about your long-term sales history. But that one had sucked for so long that I was sort of like a reset at that point. But you can actually take an old book and breathe new life into it. And that book, I made a mistake the other day, too. It didn't sit in the top 7,000 for 6 months. It sat around 700 for 6 months, that book that was 4 years old. And I didn't have a new cover. It wasn't recovered. It didn't have a new, well, it did have a new blurb partway through that, but it wasn't a lot of things you think you have to do. It was purely actually understanding how to market the book and how to run ads. And also, don't be afraid to call your baby ugly. I've got a cover that I love. I love this cover. And I have to admit, this might offend some people. It's got a naked woman on the cover of this book. And this book is on Amazon. I run AMS ads for it. And there's a naked woman on the cover of this book. And I kind of did it as a dare, because I'm like, all these romance authors, this is where Starship Gas comes from, by the way. All these romance authors get to put man chest on the cover of their book, you know, and the man chest works, right? You know, it's like, it's like the man chest. Yeah, people say that women are not visually stimulated. Women are visually stimulated. Just a little side note for you, by the way. Man chest works. And I'm like, I can't put lady chest on the front of a cover because that's not allowed. But I discovered that Starship Ass works just as well. That's where Starship Ass comes from. And I have an ad that actually I started in October. This was like kind of the first one I did personally that worked really well. Started in October of 2016. I'm still running that ad. I still put like $5 to $10 a day into that ad, and it still works and it still converts 3 years later. But I love that cover because I kind of did it to be audacious. And it's a science fiction book, so she's actually had her skin replaced with a polymorphic material that can change and flow and can turn into clothes or whatever. And sort of, she looks a little bit like, she's not like completely naked because you can't see the bottom bits or anything like that. But I like it because I'm kind of like trying to push boundaries, because I actually believe very much that in the future we'll have a society that doesn't have body shaming, and that the human body is not something that is shameful, and that no one cares what people look like. Yeah, I really hope we get there. And so that's actually one of the reasons why I dress the way I do, because I think that there's nothing wrong with the male form. There's nothing wrong with the female form. There's nothing shameful about them. We make it shameful by hiding it and by behaving like it's shameful. And in everything I do, I actually try to promote the idea that it's not shameful and there's nothing wrong with us. So that's why I did this cover. The problem is it doesn't really work as well as I hoped it would. Trying to make my social justice warrior statement with my first book in my series was not necessarily the best idea. I mean, it's been great. I've probably sold like 25,000 copies of that book. But I bet you if I took the same two ladies and I put them just shooting the shit out of something, it would probably work a lot better. So I'm gonna do that with that cover, even though it's one of my favorite covers. So I have to be not afraid to call it ugly. All right, I'm losing time here. Don't stand up from the crowd. You got to leap out it. So this summer, I decided to become a cosplaying author, and I'm still a cosplaying author. So you can imagine it's kind of working for me a little bit. This is me at Boston Comic Con with my booth, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, because we're in Boston, they have to make the backdrops the Bruins colors, which just look terrible to try and put anything in front of. I'm like, really? Like, you don't have black? Seriously, we have to have this crazy Bruins color scheme going on here? But it was really exciting, and I learned a lot of things by doing this. What are the things I learned? Right, so I learned that I've done a lot of signings. I've done a lot of hand selling about books. I'm going to tell you about what hand selling books has taught me. But when you've got a table of books and you're standing in front of that table of books looming over your books, and crowds of introverts are walking past you, you can imagine what doesn't happen. They don't just casually stop this far away from you and start picking up books where you're like, do you like my books? That's my book right there. It doesn't work. So I've learned a lot about how you actually need to give people space. You need to not be obnoxious and let them pick up your book and read it as though they're at a bookstore. This is me being totally not looming over anybody or being obnoxious or anything like that. I'm actually the lead writer on a game called Destiny's Sword, and that actually happened because they started reading my books and actually reached out to me and said they want me to be the lead writer on their game because some of the themes in my books really match their game. And that comes from something I'll be talking about a little bit that helped lead to that. So I did all these different outfits and things when I was at Boston Comic Con, and I discovered at some point, partially because my face is kind of partially, I can feminize it, but it still looks a little bit off. So I create this uncanny valley thing, and I would stand there still, and people started thinking I was a statue. And because I was trying to not be obnoxious and stand off to the side and whatnot, and they thought I was like a prop that went along with my display, and what I realized, I scared the shit out of some people when I started moving, and they would see it, And then it became fun. It was kind of an adrenaline rush, like see if I could stand there perfectly still and then lock eyes with someone they went by and they're like, oh my God. Seriously happened. So on Sunday, that's actually what I did. That was my game plan. I'm going to be a statue for an entire day, and that's actually what I did. I stood right there by my booth. Eventually, some of the guys that was nearby they did me a solid and gave me a little mat to stand on because my feet were killing me after a while. But I stood there all day Sunday for like 9 hours, and I sold the most books by doing that. Because one of two things happened. All the introverts felt comfortable, even though there's this weird statue person standing there. To come up and actually look at my books and feel like I wasn't going to bother them because this person's obviously just insane and they're just going to do their thing and I won't bother them. And if they really looked interested and engaged, then I would start talking to them. And surprisingly, none of them seemed surprised that this mannequin pretending person was actually talking to them. Possibly, I meant Comic-Con, right? Like everything's weird at Comic-Con. Like there are naked people walking by. There were so many Thors. Like I love the fact that like to do Thor, all you need to do now is have a beer gut and like a dreadlock beard and an axe, and you get to be Thor. There were like thousands of them. They were everywhere. It was like perfect. Where was I? Right, and then the other thing I would do is I would actually like lock eyes with people and scare the shit out of them. Like one guy screamed and ran away, and then he came back and bought some books for me, because he's like, look, I was really embarrassed I screamed like that, and that's why I ran away. But I really want to know what this is all about, and so I sold a lot of books, and it was actually really good. I sold the most books by pretending to be a statue, which is not what you would think would happen. So. I actually learned another really interesting thing is a lot of people would walk by and I would hear the things they would say as they walked by. And something like Aeon 14, I've never heard of that, and they would just keep walking. And I realized at that point, because I'm trying to build a brand, I actually need to start marketing Aeon 14, not MD Cooper and not my books, because I'm trying to build this overarching brand, which may appeal. If you're creating a big universe, you actually have to start doing that. And so since doing Comic-Con, I've actually started running ads that are just about awareness of Aeon 14, so that they see that. And the other thing you can do too is, you guys might get them all later on, you never know. It'll depend on how drunk I am later on. You can write ads for Facebook that target people that were in a location in a certain number of days. So what I actually did is everybody was at Boston Comic Con, I started bombarding them with Aeon 14 ads for like the next 5 days after Boston Comic Con, so that they would have walked past my booth, seen my stuff, and they start seeing it more and more and more again and getting it in their heads that this is a thing that's going on. So you want to engage with readers on topics they read for. So this is something that I'm going to talk a little bit more, but this was part of like sort of paying attention, listening, not talking, listening to what's going on around you, hearing the things that they're saying and what they're interested in or what's causing them not to be interested, and keep on walking, and then take your ego and cry for a while and put it over there and actually pay attention to what they're doing, and then be real and have I call it authenticitude. Authenticitude is kind of going to be my new thing. I think Jennifer Stowers came up with it, so she's amazing for coming up with that. So that's why I'm sticking with it, even though some people think I'm a crazy person for the way I dress. I'm having authenticitude. So don't write what you know, write what you feel. And I really don't like the write what you know thing, because I am not a starship captain. I'm kind of like a super sexy chick that if I like a pretend pew-pew gun, I could look pretty good, but that's about as close as I get to being a starship captain. So I can't write what I know. And also, what you know could be found on Google and it's probably boring. Let's be honest. Like what you know is not really that interesting. I could know what you know in no time. Well, maybe not. But I could possibly learn what you know. But you want to take what you feel and the emotions that you have. And I learned about this from hand selling, the way I would tell people about plots. If I sold them a feeling-based plot, they would buy the book. And if I sold them a plot-based, I give them a feeling-based pitch, they would buy the book. And if I gave them a plot-based pitch, they wouldn't typically. Although it does vary a little bit between men and women. But you also take what you know from listening and you craft that into a message that you share with your readers. So as I was hand selling my book, I meant to bring it with me and I forgot because I'm a blonde. I could change that. I should have worn my dark wig. I would have been smarter today. So I had my book Rika, and this book is like one of my books that gives me the feels the most. I came up with this book one night, and I wrote the first 2 chapters of this book in like an hour and a half at midnight. Because I was watching a lot of shows, and you've always got the cyborg in TV shows and sci-fi shows. And the cyborg's some sort of big meathead who just sprays bullets and doesn't seem to care and lasts maniacally, until someone pulls his cut plugs out and he falls over. I wondered, what is it like to actually be that person? And the show Killjoys gave a little bit of a feel of that. And I wanted to write about a character who was turned into a cyborg against her will, and had her body chopped up and modified against her will. And why did I write that? And what did that mean to me? And I've tried to pitch this book especially to women a lot, because this book actually does really well with women. My editor Jen's down there nodding, like she wants to be Rika. She loves it so much. And the book really speaks to women on a lot of levels, but because it's also a book about a bunch of ground-pounding cyborg warriors, it's hard to pitch the plot of that to a lot of female readers who might otherwise pick it up. But when I would talk to people in person, I could actually see the responses in their eyes to things they're saying. Like I start talking about one thing and they kind of be like, yeah, whatever. Or I'd say another thing and I would get their attention back. And I learned a lot about how to write different blurbs and pitches for my books for different audiences by standing in front of complete strangers and telling them about my stories, which is something you can only really get by hand selling books. And you can get it a lot better something like Comic-Con versus a book signing, because a book signing usually is smoothed with the readers a little bit beforehand and you kind of have a feel for them. So I wrote this blurb. And this blurb was 1/3 the cost per click of any other blurb I've written for this book while when promoting it to women. And I have a couple different variations on this. Some that talk about why I wrote it, some that talk just about the characters' feels and whatnot, and it works really well. And I was actually able to take this series and probably make like an extra $7,000 or $8,000 out of it over the last couple of months, purely by just understanding my readers, by talking to them, seeing the looks in their eyes, as I said, different things, and then understanding what they actually wanted to hear. And I actually recrafted a bunch of my ads and blurbs from doing this, from hand selling books. So if you get opportunities to hand sell your books, and what you want to do is the main thing, you're never going to make a ton of money hand selling books at conventions and whatnot, but what you're going to learn a lot about is what people think about your pitches. And you can even have a couple of pitches ahead of time that you have lined up, note them, and then note which ones are working and which ones aren't. Maybe which ones are working better for men, which ones are working better for women. And that can be something you can then take that same information and put into all of your marketing that you're doing for your books. And that was one of my biggest learning experiences. It's almost, now that I know, I'm like, why didn't I ever think of this before? Like, understand this. But it's, it's one of those things. So you want to give them feels that make you leap out. I mentioned before that it's something like 70,000 books come out a month now. It's really hard to stand out of that crowd. You have to do things. I know a lot of us don't want to because we're introverts. I mean, I'm not an introvert, but I know some of you guys are. I think it's an affliction that can be cured. I used to be an introvert too. I kid you not, I did actually used to be an introvert. My friends used to come to my house and drag me out because I was reading books. I didn't want to leave the house. And now I'm like, look at me, So it can happen to you too. I'm not sure if this is actually the cure or if this is a new affliction, but you do have to do things that stand out. Like there's Bree is around here somewhere. Bree wears these really cool red glasses, and that's her brand that she's building, and you can identify her by that. And she's consistent with it, and that helps a lot. So don't search for readers. This is where we get into a little more of the technical stuff. You want to seek out super fans. In software development, we call this early adopters. When you first start making a product, you want to find your early adopters because they're the ones who are going to tell you what you're doing wrong, and they're the ones that are going to go tell their friends how awesome it is if you're doing things right. And for us, we consider those to be super fans. And you want to find those as early as possible, and you want to nurture them and care for them as much as possible because they are the gift that keeps on giving. You want to find them as early as possible, and you want to do things for them. So I'm jumping ahead a bit. You want to do things for them that show you appreciate them. So I do things like I send all my big fans Christmas cards every year, and I now have. I'm going to do it a little bit later this year. I'm going to kind of sort of do like a hey, it's your February surprise for me on 14. I have like 700 physical mailing addresses now for my fans, from just giving them a form and saying who wants a Christmas card, and I actually got like 1,200 responses, but I assumed that people knew how to write their address. I just gave them one box. That was a mistake. I kid you not. Like this was like my biggest learning from this. Is if you give people one box, they are incapable of writing their address into it. They just some people just put their street address and nothing else. I'm like, really? Like, I'm gonna need a little bit more than your street address to mail this thing to. Or some people put a city. I'm like, well, you know what? Your post office may be good, but they're probably not that good. But I still have like 600 or 700 mailing addresses. I'm going to do it again. I hopefully get like maybe I'll get to even a couple thousand mailing addresses. So I can then I do a release or I'm doing some sort of big thing. I can mail something to my fans, and something to remind them that I'm thinking about them, so that I'm on their mind. They painted their fridge. They're thinking about the next time they want to buy a book. My stuff's on their fridge. So that's what I'm going to do. So to find your super fans, you want to find people with the most overlap. This I'm going to give, I didn't get the PDF done because I was too busy partying this entire week, but I'm going to do it, and I have a link at the end where you can sign up, and I'll mail it. I'll be mailing these out. I'm going to do a couple of short videos too to help. But if you read my Facebook book before, I said, okay, when you're making your audience in Facebook, you make one that's like all of your interests. Could be a bunch of authors, could be romance, could be people, into... I just thought all sorts of terrible things that I almost said out loud, but this is being recorded, so I'm not going to say any of those terrible things. People that are into furries, whatever they're into. I mean, there's got to be people that write books for furries, right? You're here. I know you're here. Someone writes for furries. It's okay. You can admit it. But I used to say, make one thing that's your interest for all those things, then make another one that's okay, and they like books, so like they like Kindle or they like ebooks or stuff like that. But now what you want to do is you actually want to have 5 or 6 interest blocks in there, and you want to spread all of your interests between them. So a great example, and this is going to be a terrible example because I forgot all the other bodybuilder names I was going to use. But say, for example, you want to write a book for bodybuilders, and you put a bunch of bodybuilder names in there, and you put Arnold Schwarzenegger in there as well. you're going to get a lot of people that aren't interested in bodybuilding because Arnold Schwarzenegger does more than just bodybuilding. But if you took all three of those bodybuilders and you put them into their own box, bodybuilder A, bodybuilder B, and Schwarzenegger, you're going to get people that are really into bodybuilding because they've shown Facebook that they have interest in the three separate bodybuilders, and those are people that are super into it. And the same thing is true for authors. So what I do is I might have one box that's like Star Wars and Star Trek and Babylon 5 and stuff like that, and then I'll have another box that is all these authors like Arthur C. Clarke, Larry Niven, and I'll do like a bunch of golden year sci-fi authors. And then I'll do the third box. It's harder on Facebook, but as many contemporary sci-fi authors as I can put in there as well. And I've got people that like sci-fi movies and TV shows, people that like old school sci-fi, and people that like new sci-fi coming out. I've got someone who's super into sci-fi at that point. And then I make another one down below. It's like all this regular stuff. They like ebooks and they like to read, and they're terrible introverts like the rest of us and all that jazz. There's really just an interest on Facebook, just like introvert. And you can just advertise to them. That was only a little bit funny. All right, noted. See, I'm taking feedback, and I know for next time, too many introvert jokes. I've hit my limit on that one. But like I said, this is an eye chart. I'm going to do a better PDF that has a lot more instructions and steps for this. And also, actually, as a side note, I'm releasing on December 5th a new Facebook book. And what I'm going to do, I mentioned before I was going to sell at a discounted amount, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to give my new Facebook book away to everybody for free. And you can just pay me what you think it's worth. Because I think a lot of people have recently bought my previous book, and I don't want to charge them again for the new book, and stuff like that. So I'm just going to put it out there, and everybody can have my book, my Facebook ads book, for free, and I'll put a PayPal link in there, and you can just pay me whatever it's worth to you, and we can go that way. Because I don't want to feel like I'm ripping people off by just charging a bunch of money for books over and over again. But if you have it, I'll put the link will be at the end, and also if you've already signed up for the mailing list at the back of the existing book, you're already on that to get that. So I'll be mailing out all this information to everybody on that list, and I'll put it in the group too, in the Facebook group when I get it all done. Like I said, I was just too busy partying and getting drunk. Actually, I didn't drink at all last night. Like, what's wrong with me? But yeah, this works really well. Now the downside to this is these clicks will be more expensive, because you're really narrowing it down. You're not letting Facebook just sort of throw it at anybody that happens to meet any of this criteria. These clicks will cost you on average twice as much as your other clicks. But you're not just looking for anybody to pick up your book. You're looking for super fans. And it's going to cost you a little bit more to find them, but they will typically convert better as well. So these ads might cost a little more, but they have higher conversion. And that's something to really think about too. When you're running ads, cost per click is not everything. I could run an ad that says free rainbow ponies, and I'm going to get like 1 cent per click. I'm going to get 1 billion clicks. I'm not going to sell any books off the free rainbow pony ad, right? Like, it's not going to work. So cost per click doesn't mean everything. You need to have an ad that actually is aligned with the thing you're selling, and sometimes that costs more money. So conversion does matter a lot. And of course, the only way we can test conversion is to use affiliate marketing. So every single person that manages to see anyone from Amazon, they're like, dear God, there's people in this room who spend like $5 to $10 million a year advertising for your website. Can we at least have some goddamn conversion data? If anybody from Amazon watches this, like seriously, like nobody in the world spends this much money on marketing and has like no information on how well that marketing's working. It's nuts. Yeah, right? Like, it's stupid. Like, come on, people, really. We're pumping money into your damn website. Let us know if it's working. If there's going to be any reason why authors abandon Amazon, it will be eventually because we just feel like we're pumping money into it and we don't know if it's working or not. Like, that'll be the #1 reason why we would leave for another platform. All right, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. The other thing is, who has the Facebook Pixel installed on their website? All right, everybody else that does not have the Facebook Pixel installed on their website, you must install this within the next week, or I will personally find you and make you wear a catsuit in public. Okay? And if you like that idea, I'll find something that you don't like. So the Facebook Pixel is very much like the Google Analytics tracking code. It puts a pixel on your website so that Facebook can then track who comes to your website and what they do and what pages they go to. And because people are typically logged into Facebook as well on the same device, it knows who they are when they're on your website. So you can actually have pages, you can actually make ads and build audiences for people that went to a certain page on your website. So what I do with this a lot of times, I have Pinterest boards. I think I have about 70,000 pins on Pinterest. And about half of those link back to my website. And they link to certain pages. And those pins are very, very sci-fi focused. I have a whole bunch of boards and a whole bunch of users and whatnot, and those are very sci-fi focused pins. And then when people click on those pins and they come back to my website, it goes to a certain page and it triggers a Facebook pixel. And I know then that these people are into sci-fi and they clicked on something that looks bookish, and I put them into an audience on Facebook and I start showing them more ads. and now they start seeing Facebook ads. And then I also do that sort of thing with other things like YouTube videos and Instagram and whatnot. They'll end up on certain pages, and I can tell where they came from, and I can start showing them more ads, and I can put them into funnels. And then because it actually takes 5 to 6 impressions before someone buys something, is the way that works with marketing. People don't see one ad. I mean, some people do, but typically people don't see one ad and just buy. Like, think of all the things you've bought. Did you buy, like, when you see a Geico commercial, you're like, I'm going to go buy Geico right now. No, you buy Geico the next time you're looking for car insurance, and if they're top of mind because they have the best commercials, then you're going to think of them. This is an eye chart as well, but it just sort of says, like, you go to business.amazon.com. It was actually on this, or wow, I get these wrong all the time. Business.facebook.com. It's like actually like in the reports thing partway down, it says Pixel. You click on that after clicking the menu. By the way, it's a fun little thing, that little 3-line thing is called the hamburger. You click the hamburger menu, and then it's Pixel underneath the metrics and reports, whatever. And then that's where it takes you to a thing where you can basically get your Pixel. If you're running Facebook, all you need is actually a number, your Pixel ID, and there's Facebook plugins that you just put your Pixel number into. The other thing you can do, this is also just some code for any nerds, how you can actually extract an image tag, and you can actually just put an image tag in your footer. If you don't know how to do anything else, you can actually say, give me the Pixel code, and in there there'll be a little spot that's actually just an image tag, and you can put that in the footer in your website. So if you're capable of just doing something that simple, you can install the Pixel tag on your own website. And that's going to give you a lot. In fact, it'll even give you reports in Facebook that show you real-time traffic on your website, who's there, what pages they're looking at, how long they spend on different pages and stuff like that. So you can even say, like, I want to run an ad to people. And you can, when you go to build an audience, you can do this once the Pixel's installed in your audience building thing. You can actually choose your website as a source and then choose like what pages they went to. So if someone went to 5 pages on your website, you know they're interested in your stuff. You can start showing them more ads, or you show them ads for the new book that just came out if they've looked at the other books in that series. And that's how you can retarget and remarket to people. I had something else really clever there that I was going to say, but it's gone now. This is just sort of an example of what I'm talking about how you would take all these people by engaging people on these different websites, sending them to your website, capturing them with a Facebook pixel, then marketing them on Facebook, which then sends them to Amazon and makes you a sale. It's called a marketing funnel. And I'm going to do like a little short video on this in more depth, but it's the sort of thing that's hard for you guys to see while you're sitting out there, so I didn't want to spend too much time on that. But that's the thing that's really been good for me this year. And the great thing about this is that this is marketing. It doesn't cost you that much money. Because even if you're just starting out and you want to start capturing readers and knowing who they are and building audiences, you can do this before you even have a book out. You can like start having a presence on Pinterest or on Instagram or on YouTube or Twitter or Tumblr and send people to your website, which has the pixel, and you can start building that audience. And then when your book comes out, now you can start marketing people that are already interested in you, that you know are already interested in you. So it's a free way to start building an audience, and free is great. So that's one of the reasons why I bring this up. And then you can later on even layer that stuff with other interests, like they go to these pages on your website and they're interested in these authors and stuff like that. And then you are going to know even more that they're going to be people that are going to be super fans. And of course, super fans are your marketers. That's what I mentioned before. And if you focus your efforts on them, they'll give you your biggest rewards. I was talking with someone, this is part of my argument about algorithm. Like, there's been times in the past where I thought that I did something amazing, and it was like, wow, look at this thing I did, it was so great. I sold like 2,500 books in like 3 days, it was so awesome. And I found out that one of my super fans went around and mentioned me on a whole bunch of forums. And that's actually what sold those books for me. It wasn't anything I did. It was a super fan that went out and did that for me. So when people, sort of like a thing, when people tell you that they did something and it worked, you're like, okay, how'd you isolate the variables to know that that was the thing that actually worked? Because it's actually really hard to tell that in the business that we do, because Amazon doesn't give us any tracking ability. If they did, we would know if our marketing is working and we would do more of it, Amazon. Just saying. Hashtag just saying. Oh, I got 7 minutes left. I got to go fast. I can't believe this. I thought I was going to like run out of things to talk about. Don't be bold, be unforgettable. I think I've got that one nailed, right? Right? Like, I'm not wearing a lanyard anymore. Do I need to wear a lanyard now? I mean, okay, I'm a little egotistical. I'll back down a little bit. I'm sorry. But you get my point, right? Like, you want to do things that are memorable. You don't have to wear a cat suit unless you want to. Sarah looked amazing in hers yesterday. She was like the best little ninja ever. It made me warm my heart to have someone else like pick up the catsuit torch and carry it with me. But you can be unforgettable in your own way. I know these two ladies that I've seen a couple of different signings, and they write like this sort of futuristic steampunk stuff, and they wear these silver dresses with corsets, and they what do they call like the curls, like the 50s curls in the front of the head? Pinwheel rolls? Sorry, what? Pin curls. Yes, thank you. All right. Yeah, so they actually run classes teaching women how to do pin curls in their hair before the signings, so that everybody knows who they are, and they're all kind of like, this is cool, and we like you, and not. And the signing comes, and their table's just flooded, because everybody loves the fact they got taught how to do pin curls by them. And they're like, everybody knows them, everybody recognizes them. One of the ladies, she works in IT, and so she just travels around in a van all over the country doing different signings, and stuff like that. And she's got like all of her books in her van and just does her job. Like she stops for a couple hours and does her work and whatnot. And she's doing really well doing that because she's made this really memorable brand. And people are like excited to learn how to do cool makeup and cool hair stuff with her before they get to buy her books and whatnot. So she's made a really unforgettable brand for herself. The other parts of your brand is you actually want to use your brand as a filter. So I write a lot of books with a lot of women, a lot of empowered women, I actually have a ton of lesbians. I'm just buried in lesbians all the time in my books, which is fantastic, right? And there are people who just aren't interested in reading books about a whole lot of lesbians piloting starships. There are a lot of people, as it turns out, are interested in reading books about a whole lot of lesbians powering. There are guys too. Sometimes the guys get to fly. The girls let them every now and then. It does happen. But I've also, I've seen on ads, quite literally, people will comment to my ads, I would read this book if it wasn't for the fact that it was about a woman. They'll actually say things like that. And I'm like, good, because I don't want your freaking 1-star on my book later on. I don't want them to read my book. I don't want to pay for their click. I'm actually quite happy they made a comment because it actually adds to engagement on my post. Hey, thanks for helping out and thanks for not clicking and costing me any money. You actually want to use your language, your presentation to filter out the people that you don't want to read as much as you want to use it to bring people in. And you want to think about that in your presentation and whatnot and not feel bad when that happens either. I don't feel bad. I'm happy. It's like when people well, I'm tired of your mailing list. I'm getting off of it. I'm unsubscribing. They email you to tell you that for some reason, right? And I'm like, thank you for getting off my mailing list because you were costing me money and I want you gone, So it's the same sort of idea. I'm grateful for my readers. I really am. But at the same time, I don't want to pay money for people that aren't going to read and just make me feel bad. The other thing when you're doing your presentation, when you're talking to people in person, when you're speaking your marketing, is to avoid making declarative statements. I am the worst person in the world for making declarative statements. Declarative statements, this is how I know, right? I'm living, this is my lived experience here. Declarative statements are bad. I actually had I'm always the person who says, well, it's like this, or, back in Roman times, they did X, Y, Z. How the fuck do I know what they did in Roman times? How does anyone know what they did in this particular time? No one really knows for sure. But I always used to speak in really declarative statements all the time. And when you do that, you invite controversy. You invite people to argue with me because they have different opinions or they have a different experience. And I had this friend of mine who said to me, your life would be a lot easier if you didn't speak in declarative statements all the time. And I'm better. I'm 30% down from where I used to be. But then you say things like I feel or in my experience or have you ever found that? You phrase things like that when you're talking to people. You even phrase things like that in your marketing. And you're going to appeal to people a lot more. Have you ever found that when you're doing X, Y, Z, blah happens? Well, that's kind of how it was for my character. That could be your ad copy. And you're meeting people in a way that they feel. And they're like, I felt like that too. I want to read about how this character dealt with that. And that sort of versus saying she was bad and then this thing happened. That's not going to hit people the same way as some sort of emotional connection that they can bring into themselves and say, oh, I want to learn more about this. Because people read for emotion. People read to connect with other people. That's the whole reason why we do it. Plots and settings and stuff like that are great. But at the end of the day, if the characters suck, if you can't connect with them, if they're not people, you just don't care about them. You want to be visually memorable. I think I've kind of covered that one. I think it's good, right? We're good on that one, visually memorable. You don't have to wear cat suits, but you do want to try and establish a brand, and you want to make that brand consistent. There are so many authors here that use book covers for their pictures on Facebook, and I don't know who the heck you are. And I feel like if you're going to go to a signing, your readers are going to be the same way. They're not going to spot you at the table and whatnot, or they're not going to spot you at the mixer before the signing or something like that, or a lot of other scenarios like that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Some people have very good reasons for why they can't use their specific picture on Facebook, but you really want to make a consistent brand so that people see you, they know it's you. Whether it's your Facebook profile, whether it's your page, whether it's how you present yourself on your book covers, on your blurbs in person. If you try and make that consistent, and ironically, I'm speaking in a branding session after this one in Hawthorne. It's really important. It's really important to create that memorable brand and then carry that through to your advertising and everything like that. Make it so it's all one thing. And that goes back to what I learned about when I'm marketing Aeon 14. People are walking past my booth saying, I don't know what Aeon 14 is. I've never heard of that. I'm like, I have a brand problem. I've been building brand in the wrong ways, but not in this overarching way that I want so people can always recognize my stuff. I have to make sure that I do that and make sure that every time I talk and present, I'm always presenting this brand. I'm wearing a sci-fi cat suit here today that kind of looks like something one of my characters would wear because I want to be on brand. I want to make it so that now you go and you see my books, you're like, wow, these characters on the covers of Mal's books kind of just look exactly like Mal. And it's consistent. It carries through all the time. So those are all the crazy things I'm going to say. I can't believe I've got 2 minutes left. Wow. So my wife and I, And this is her idea because she's genius and she's amazing, and she just doesn't want to wear cat suits. But we started a thing called the Writing Wives, and because we've learned a lot, and we want to share a lot of that back with people. So the second edition of the Facebook book is coming out. We're doing one about help my launch plan sucks, and that one's going to be like, can you write 3 books a year? Can you write 3 books a month? Can you write 3 books a day? How would you launch at those different speeds? How would you launch based on your goals? This whole presentation is in the file section on the group as well, so you can grab it there too. And then we're also doing one on marketing strategies, and we're going to be releasing all of these books. The launch plan one's really cool because it's actually going to have worksheets where you like put in, here's my launch date, and it's going to say, okay, this many days before launch you need to do this. This many days before launch you need to do this. This many days after launch you need to do this. All the things. It's going to be like, how do you use Goodreads to actually launch a book? Yes, you can use Goodreads to launch a book. Here's a little tip for you. On Goodreads, anytime someone adds your book to their to-read shelf, they get an email when it comes out, right? So if your book is not in KU, or sorry, if your book is in KU, and all your KU readers can't pre-order it, tell them to add it to their to-be-read shelf, and they're going to get an email the day it goes out. And the more to-read shelves, is it called to-read? I feel like I'm saying it wrong all of a sudden. But anyway, the more shelves your book is on, the more Goodreads shows it to other people. So it's actually a great way to market your book before they come out when they're in KU, because running ads for a book when it's in KU doesn't work because you're just spending money for people to click when they can't actually buy it. So there are a lot of things you can do, different steps before launch that you can do to help out a book. So we'll be having that in there, and yeah. So the website is thewritingwives.com/20booksvegas. There'll be an email sign up form. You'll get emailed when these books come out. When I do all the PDFs and some little short videos, you get emails about those too. And then of course you'll get the link to get the Facebook ads book for free. And I have 25 seconds left, so thank you very much, everybody.
Could you possibly talk any faster? Sorry. All right, you already gave it up for Mal Cooper. We appreciate it. 15 minutes, 20 minutes actually, because Mal finished early. Well, on time, we stiffed you 5 minutes. So Mal will be hanging around. You might be able to see her here or there. If not, she kind of blends into the woodwork as a wallflower. But no, stop by, ask a question. I'm sure you have one from this session, and carry on a conversation. But you can't, and this also gives you a little more time to get upstairs for your panel. All right, have a good one. Thank you.